Welcome to another episode of the Ball at All Costs podcast. This week we are joined by the legend Phil PJ Roberts, the inner game, and we're going to get into that in a bit. Public service announcements as always. Guys, I am so thankful. We as a team are so thankful for your subscriptions. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification and leave a comment. But firstly, I appreciate what it takes to subscribe. I appreciate what you're doing. You're actually making a commitment when you subscribe to us. And you are saying we can enter your feed. You're going to see us if you subscribe. So sometimes you don't want to tune in. I appreciate that. And sometimes you do. And we're always going to be there once you subscribe. But I urge you to subscribe. And the numbers are going up. We can see it. It means we're doing a half decent job, so we appreciate that. But the numbers still need to go up further. So if you're listening now and you haven't hit that subscribe button, please take this second, hit subscribe. Right now, I'm waiting. Thank you. And now we will proceed. My brethren, we'll do our check-in. I'm going to start with Phil first, actually, because I know you just came in from the cold. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. It's that time of year. Yeah, it's good. Best job in the world for 6 months, and then worst job in the world for the next 6 months. So yeah, we're just entering that time. But no, good, really good.
Good. I urge you to, or implore you to practice your Portuguese. And as I said to Deji, maybe get a job in Brazil. And join the Genio, the Bundler, Van Helsing. How are you doing this weekend? How is the Echo League for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm echo what Phil's saying. 6 months of the year is the best time, and you've got your flip flops, so you have Havanas on, and then the other part you have to wear your Wellington boots. Unfortunately, for my beloved club this weekend, the game was called off, and I'm wishing well the opposition. We heard that one of the young people had a fracture, and a number of their players were nursing sicknesses overnight, so we wish you a speedy recovery, but it meant that there was no football our end, and I'm not one to kind of base in the kind of competitiveness of the Argentina league, but it did mean that the two runaway leaders, Andrew being one of them, have decided to literally run away. So we're now looking at the champions-elect and the ones who put themselves as the number one team, a place called Brentwood. And it's very interesting stuff. So we look forward to seeing how those two teams get on in terms of who's going to battle it out for the title. As for us, we're just happy to be there 1 week on, 1 week off. So, delighted.
I'm not going to take the bait. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to do it. Sorry, guys. If you're regular listeners, you know what's going on here. This is the baiting season, and I'm not going to take the bait. OC, how are you doing?
Yeah. I'm okay. The boys played. They don't know how they lost that game. I have no idea how they lost that game. It was insane. But some good signs for the team. My boy played his first game in the middle of the park, and I think he's the next Steven Gerrard coming up, to be honest. And he did it with a goal and assist and some lovely through balls. So it was nice for him. And good signs from the team. But I do want to share something, because listen, we're building a platform. We want to be real. We want to be honest. And I think on the last episode I said that sporting this moustache as part of Movember to raise awareness for mental health, testicular cancer, pancreatic cancer, and suicide prevention. And do you know what? Like men are struggling. Up and down the country, and received some sad news yesterday. Some sad news. Let me put a trigger warning in, because if you've got your children listening, perhaps you might want to skip this piece. But sad news yesterday. Like my close boy, childhood friend, he passed had got the news yesterday, only 38 years of age. Early indications pointing towards like substance abuse, like an overdose, and it's just deep because, like I say, men are struggling, men are turning to vices, men are turning to other things in life to try and find their way out, and it's led to the demise. It's left 4 kids. With us, a fiance is just about to set his wedding date today. He was due to go to the venue today, and these check-ins, they're meaningful, right? Because we speak about the kids, but like I said on the Instagram, let's check in with one another. Let's really see what's going on, because that text message, that phone call, that can save lives. So listen, it's been up and down for me. It's been tough, but just thinking about his kids, his mum, his brothers and sisters, his fiance, and we will set up a Just Giving page for him so he can get a good send off. But like I say, it's real life, man. It's real life, and we need to do more just to check in with our brothers and ensure that we're doing the right thing by them. So yeah, like I say, trigger warning, but I just wanted to share that and just keep it real.
Do you know what? Thank you for sharing, firstly. Secondly, if you need to take a moment, because this is really fresh, so if you need to take yourself off camera, please do so. We'd like to offer condolences to your friend and his family, because it's never easy whatsoever. And I mean, we've got the inner game, and like literally we can talk about some of this stuff with Phil. Phil will give some good insight, but I think you raised some good points. We go through life and we try to be strong and we try to be there for everyone and show no weakness and stuff. So it isn't always good, because it's a pressure pot that's building. And sometimes pressure can make diamonds or it can burst pipes. So we need to be very, very careful. So we do need to speak to each other. So good point. Thank you for sharing again. I'm going to change it up a little bit and just say shout out to my brother, one of my brothers. It's his birthday today. Although we don't go out on the day we record or even close to it, but we record on his birthday. So big him up. Let's big up our men as well. Our leaders, our fathers. I know it's not Father's Day. Shout out to mums. Don't get me wrong. I don't want no hate campaign. I'm just saying we're talking about men just now. So we're going to keep it moving. We're going to speak to Phil. And Phil, you are actually our first. We like to have first on this show. You are actually our first returnee who isn't now part of the panel. So OC returned. He became a panelist. Tom Bassett returned. He became a panelist. Maybe you return, you become a panelist. We'll keep that moving. We'll keep it moving. But welcome back, Phil. How are you doing again?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me back. Really excited. Really enjoyed the last episode. Kenza and I haven't stopped talking about it, and the feedback from parents and people that said it was kind of surreal to see us in a different light, where we're always on the pitch, and we do have conversations, but to have the long form, I like podcasts, I like consuming podcasts in the long form, I think was, thanks for having both of us. I know I speak for Kenza as well, having us both on, because we've had a real good feedback from it.
I'm not surprised. It is to date our best-selling podcast. So you'll be pleased to know that you guys hit the numbers. As I said to you, as we said in the room, there was healing, there was power, there was a lot going on that evening. It was a great show. And I'm glad to have you back on, because I think we scratched the surface of some of the stuff that you do, Phil. And we can't assume that our listeners actually listen to that show. If you haven't, please, when you get the time after this one, check into a lot of stuff. We've done a lot now. I think we're up to about 38 episodes. So, and a lot of good content. But that one, as I said, is our bestseller to date. So check in, and I'm sure you'll have a good listen. But this one, Phil, I'd just like you to give us a bit of background about yourself, how you got into football, how you got into coaching, and then how you got into the inner game. and created that brand?
So my football journey, I've said it before, but I never wanted to be a footballer. I never wanted to. When I was growing up and I was very young, I was really fortunate that my parents didn't really steer me in any direction. So I was at a different club every day of the week. I did stuff like Irish dancing. I did drama. I did football. I was always at multi-sports camps in the half terms and stuff. Did tuition and stuff like that. My mum's a real pusher. And at the time, I probably resented her a bit for that in my younger years. But as I've grown older, I've realized how many experiences I was able to have at a young age without really being boxed in to something. Football was always my favorite sport, a passion. But I only ever really wanted to become a footballer when I felt that I was as good as some players that were in academies, and I was rejected from Essex county trials, and that really flicked a fire on inside of me. I guess it's the first kind of my introduction into that inner game. Before then, it was all fun. It was playground football. It was I say Echo League football. I think the Echo League now is taken far more seriously than it was when I was growing up, playing for like Lakeview. It wasn't known as a pathway into academies. It was just Sunday League football, Echo League football. And from there, went on trial at a few places in year 7, year 8, and faced rejection from Millwall, Charlton, Liverpool. I think there are more that I've probably just regressed in my memory, but that was quite tough to deal with, and that was really the first time that now as a parent, and I've got my own 3 boys, that I worry about how my mum was able and my dad were able to deal with me with that rejection, because I was broken for a while, but they supported me through it, and managed to go on trial at Norwich and have a successful trial there. I wasn't ready. I always say that. I tell the scout and my manager that brought me there now that I definitely wasn't ready, and I'm really thankful that he gave me a chance, that he saw something that I don't think was there at the time, and really helped me to thrive. I then played for the Republic of Ireland. That's my mum's Irish. And I always tell the story about just luck of the draw, that every scout in the country was at my debut match for Ireland to watch the Czech Republic centre-back. And the front 3, our Ireland team front 3, ended up me at Arsenal, the right winger at Tottenham, and the left winger at Aston Villa, all off the back of us torching the centre-back that one game. And then it was a bit of a bidding war for the 3 of us. Became a professional footballer through Arsenal, went on loan in Scotland, and then extended my stay in Scotland for a few years. I had a real good time up there playing professional football and moving out of London and getting really far away. And I felt like that seclusion and being so far away helped me at the beginning of my time, because it was a real clean break. However, I'd say I struggled with the inner game of balancing disappointment, balancing having no support network around me. I come from a real close family, extended family, grew up always around my cousins and my grandparents and my second cousins and my third cousins, and kind of being secluded in Scotland started to take its toll on me, especially when dealing with being out of the squad or dips in performances, where it all culminated in me not regretting anything. I've said that many a time, but ending up dropping out of professional football and doing the non-league circuit for a while before really having to question, looking in that mirror and thinking, am I hanging on to playing non-league football because this is my entire identity and it's all I know? Or could there possibly be more to life, or more to my experience in a deeper way I could give back, which kind of shifted me into the psychological side of the game, and began coaching, but really coaching with the intention that the most important thing is your psychological side. I truly believe that. I say to some of the players that I feel like my life is not easy, but it's a hell of a lot easier than some people I know that haven't been in high-end sport because of what you have to deal with. I think the earlier you face adversity and learn tools to deal with that, the better you'll be in life, which led me to doing a master's degree with the PFA in football psychology, emotional intelligence and leadership. And I've recently opened up The Inner Game, which is an Instagram channel, but which will be a mentoring platform for students that at the moment will be secondary school students, but to help them to deal with issues such as confidence, building resilience, teamwork, all the soft skills that I think I see a lot of children doing one-to-ones till they're blue in the face, and strength and conditioning until they're blue in the face. But we often neglect the psychological side of it, which I think will have the biggest impact on not just the football career, but life. So, yeah.
You know what? Big up to that Inner Game and you going and getting your master's in psychology and emotional intelligence. And I missed one, but I think that's impressive. I think it's amazing. And I think the Inner Game and what you're setting out to achieve there is superb. And I think you're 100% right. One-to-ones to you're blue in the face, or 4 times a week, as Coach Jules said. But the mind, as we just touched on, is the most important, right? It really is, the mindset. So thank you for that. I just want to go back a little bit before we move it forward again, Phil. What was young Phil like in school outside of football and sports? What kind of character were you?
I think I was an extrovert. I had lots of energy. I like to push boundaries. I like to question things. I'd say inquisitive. I think I naturally used to gravitate towards extremely strong leadership. So I found it difficult with, say, teachers or coaches that were quite soft. And I used to say, if you want me to do something, you're going to have to say, Phil, you better do that or you're going to spend the rest of the year in detention, rather than say, oh, come on, Phil, how nice would it be if you just finished your homework? I was naturally drawn towards really strong leadership, both male and female, really strong leadership.
Yeah.
I grew up in East London, so I played more cricket in school than I played football at lunchtime. Used to love cricket, played for my school's cricket team. But I think really inquisitive. I think I was lucky to have lots of friends from lots of different backgrounds, and the kind of melting pot that I grew up in allowed me to see lots of different experiences, going to friends' houses, trying different foods. So I think I had a real diversity of experience that I don't think a lot of people often realize how important that is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always tell the story of London being a melting pot when I went to New York, and I thought New York was a melting pot. And it was myself and my brother and one of our mates who was white. And everyone started looking at us funny. We weren't sure why that was. We thought it was because of our drip. And then they turned around and said, should we be honest? It's because you're 2 black guys and not a white guy. And I was like, what are you talking about? I thought New York was like London. And they said, we have all the cultures, we don't mix. Yeah. So it was very interesting. I think it's only us in Toronto that kind of had that melting pot. So it's a very good point you make. And it's good context, I think, as we move deeper into this conversation to understand what young Phil was like. And the only other question I had about your young childhood there was, how did the Irish dancing help you with football?
Massively. Like my mum would swear that that's the only reason that I'm a footballer. But I think massively for one, I thought it built resilience. So I really enjoyed it because I was introduced to it at an age that I wasn't concerned about being cool. So I was introduced to it before those social implications of being a dancer. And by the time those social implications came, I already enjoyed it too much, to the point that I went to the World Championships of Irish dancing.
Oh, wow.
But what I think it did was built resilience, built that inner self of, I do this because I want to do it, and it's part of my heritage. And also it kind of broke down boundaries in my head that there weren't many mixed race children doing Irish dancing in 2001. But it allowed me to have friendships that I have to this day, and also the staginess of it. One thing I don't think we speak about enough in football is that it's about winning, definitely, but you are in the entertainment business and you are a performer. Some of my favorite characters ever, the Balotellis, are performers. I don't think about them because he scored 100 goals in 90 games. I think there's a performance side of football that I was really able to embrace through the dancing that gave me a strong sense of self. And bright lights not really allowing me to get outside of my character. I know who I am. It kind of did that for me.
Wow, there's me expecting you to say it helped you be light on your feet, and it was a lot deeper than that, which is brilliant. And I should have expected that, because this is the inner game. We didn't get a chance to send you our questions, and that's my fault there, so apologies. And I was going to try and attempt this in a structured way, but when you spoke about your journey, it brought up a topic I really want to talk about, and I'm going to speak on this topic, and I'm going to open the floor because I know the guys are bursting to get involved in the conversation. But you touched on trialing. You touched on trials and rejection, and I think trial is an overlooked process in terms of how that impacts the child, right? Because I think it's different to pre-academy stage, although it's similar. But I think pre-academy, you're all there together. You're all young boys. You don't really know kind of what's going on. You want to play football. You kind of know that you have an opportunity to play for a club, but you're really super young. And then you don't get in. It is sad and sometimes very blunt, but I think your parents kind of are there to kind of pick you up and kind of put your arm around your shoulder and say, don't worry, son, we'll do this. Let's go to cinema, kind of. Yeah. And it's easier to kind of soften that blow, I think, when it's pre-academy.
Yeah.
But then when you go on trial and you're a bit older now, you're older than 9, sometimes 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16. Okay. You gain a bit more knowledge, understanding, experience. You've got that little bit of chip on your shoulder, if you like, from the district game because you're playing with boys and they've got the tracksuit.
Yeah.
You're kind of apprehensive. You think, oh, they're at so-and-so club, Cat 1 club. They're better than me. There's this self-doubt. Sometimes it leads to motivation. Sometimes it leads to people going into their shell. But ultimately, you're going in. You've earned the right to go in. But you're going into an environment where you've got a group of boys or girls who have built up a team bond, relationships, friendships. They've built up the right to have the shirt, and they've built up this need and want to keep that shirt and not let you have that shirt. So you've got to go in and you've got to work hard. You've got to work harder than them, and you've got to be better than them. And that's probably better than the majority of them to earn a place in their academy. And you've got to do that for 6 to 8 weeks, and sometimes even longer. And at the end of it, there could be rejection. And the likelihood is, probably for your first time, there might be rejection. So as a parent, as a coach, as a doctor, how would you, A, prepare a child to go into an academy? What kind of advice would you give a child? And also, B, I'm bundling like Deji here, what advice would you give to parents in how they act, what they, I guess, give their child in form of information, and how do they act with other parents? Because do they build friendships? Do they stand by themselves and just watch their child? Because that friendship may only last 6 to 8 weeks. A couple of questions there for you.
I'll start with the child. I always think you have to know. We'll always go back to self-awareness and who that child is, and what that child is like. When we've had, first thing I'd say is if it's the first trial they've been on, I think it's important. It's very important to take all pressure off. Super important to not build it up at all. It's most likely the answer is no. It's very rare that you're going to go in and get a yes and it's your first time because of that imposter syndrome. It's the first thing that creates the tracksuit that we've spoken about. I think there's nothing worse than trialing. I think trialing is the worst part of the footballing journey as a player by far.
I agree.
I think dependent on the psychological makeup of that child, I think you have to frame it as a learning experience. So I think if it's framed within a teachable moment of where do I think I rack up when I first go in? So it's all about self-reflection. How do you think you did today? Where would you put yourself? And you as the parent, I also think it puts a lot on you that I've got kids. We all see our kids through rose-tinted glasses, or potentially sometimes go the other way and nothing's ever good enough. I can be a bit like that with my middle child, especially, that sometimes I need to ease off and not be coach and be dad. So I think that's finding a balance in that. As they get older, I think you can be more and more honest about what this is. So we say if you're going to have a successful trial at a club, you're going to either have to be better or different. One of those two things, preferably both, better than another player and different than another player that they're looking at. But I really think when you're going in, I think there shouldn't be, in the work that I do, we talk about process-based thinking and outcome-based thinking. And going into academies with outcome-based thinking, with the amount of variables there are, you're going to send yourself into a headspin, because it might not be about you. You can go into a trial, do every single thing right, and be told no. For me, that doesn't mean I'd reframe no into not yet. I don't like the word no. It's a not yet rather than a no. So if you're framing your trial, and I think I don't know how you can get around it because it is a yes or a no business, but how you frame that and how you speak to then your child about that experience. Well, what did you learn? What are you going to take back to your club? Have you learned anything about the intensity? If I was a striker, I always say that every time, even without trials, I steal everything. If I think someone is better than me at something, I'm analyzing their game and I'm stealing it and I'm taking it so that when I come back, you're no longer better than me at that thing.
Yeah.
With parents, I think it's tough because I think you take any academy, every single age group, and those parents are going to be a different type of clique. So that could be nice and welcoming. It could be quite standoffish. Your son is here or your daughter's here to take my son or daughter's place. I think academies do profile parents. So, but I can't say what they like and they don't like. I think there would probably be an equal amount of academies that like parents that seem to integrate quickly with the other parents. Probably knowing from what I know about coaching, there's probably an equal amount.
She's upset. She's doing the wrong thing, I think. Sorry.
But equally, I do think there could be other academies and stuff that sometimes probably find it quite a battle against parents if all the parents are clicked up and all together and always moaning and whining about Johnny only got 6 minutes and my 6-year-old Johnny is clearly a centre back. Why are they playing him right wing? There's a lot of that as well. But in terms of supporting the child, I do think if you frame everything as a learning opportunity, you're not going to go wrong. Rather than framing it as, I think sometimes what parents get wrong is framing it as the outcome is yes. It's a race to 18. Your child gets into Watford under 12s. Oh, it was a yes, it was great. The second that you put pen to paper, it's a team of about 15 scouts whose job is to replace your child at Watford. Yeah. So that this is the nature of the game that we're in, that you can't be outcome based, because no sooner have you gone into a club than they're trying to find your replacement. That's the nature of professional sport.
Brilliant. And just on that point, and the parents, you mentioned parents being profiled. So the academies are notorious for not giving information. They may have a mid-trial review. They may not. They should give you feedback at the end, positive or negative. They may not. You may need to press them. How does a parent manage their anxiety in that situation?
By understanding how important it is that your child is a professional footballer. It would be my brutal answer. Is it the making or breaking of them? And if the anxiety is at a level where you're spiraling, I would suggest that you've made football more important than it should be for any child. So I would say there's a level of anxiety. You should be celebrating, not anxious. It's a celebration. So few, if we talk about how many people get to be professional footballers, the numbers are still at 1% of those who were ever invited in to trial. It's a privilege. It's a celebration. It's that I understand everyone wants the yes. I do understand that. However, when they get in the car after school and tell you something amazing that happened at school, would the reaction be the same as getting told yes from an academy, would be one of my questions. Or would them learning a new skill or learning a new language or something like that, how would that be greeted, would be my concern. And if they don't marry up, then we are making football, I would say, too big. And that could be quite counterintuitive and maybe not what people want to hear. But I think that's the best. If you're asking me what's the best way to support a child and nurture a child, then I think that's massively important.
And would you say something similar to, if it wasn't the making football too important, but the fact that your child had been on trial for 3 months, they did the initial 8 weeks, got extended, you were doing an hour journey, 3 times a week, you're rushing from work, bringing a sibling out in the cold, you think they've done okay, you've been told they've done well, all the parents like your child, and then you get a no. Is that the same way to manage it, or is there a different kind of mindset there? Yeah,
I don't think it's fair. I don't think it should be fair. I know that sounds cold at times, but this is what we sign up for. This is what we sign up for when we do this. Because the reward is so high, I believe, I think the reward behind my child becoming a professional footballer, and that's what they want to do. I think because the reward is so high, the price before that reward has to be just as, I completely understand. I've done it. I've gone on the train from East London to go down to Sparrows Lane at Charlton. I don't get back till 11 o'clock at night. I was there for 9 months. And when I got the no, I was broken, absolutely broken, like broken to bits. I don't know why they kept me there for 9 months. That's my thinking at the time. However, if I was to reflect back now, I was at Charlton for 9 months in their training sessions. learning, that imposter syndrome was gone at the end of that 9 months. So although I had the resentment, I had learned something from that. So I do think there's always a rejection is awful. Rejection is the worst part of this game. But you do it because I have it sometimes. I say to parents when we've got to do a long journey somewhere in a cup game, I sometimes say flippantly, well, if Man City said we were playing them at the Etihad, would that be a problem?
Yeah,
I think so, to some degree it's just what we sign up for as football parents.
yeah.
Like if Man City said we'll come down and play at the Etihad, everyone would have hotels and leave at 4 a.m. so I think there's that side of it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Philip, man, my brother played for Lakeview, actually. I'm not sure in difference in age, but when you said that, it kind of just, there's a really strong bonding connection there. Look, I've got so many questions, but I'm just going to leave with the 3 that I have, and I'm just going to take it left. But I feel like with you, there can be no structure, so I'm kind of glad we didn't set you any questions, actually. We just got to go with the feeling. The first question is, are we in a stage now where the parents are living through their kids? Yeah. And I'm going to frame it around one of my favorite movies, A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. What is your opinion from what you see? Are parents living through their kids, or are they doing their kid? Are they supporting their kids?
I think it's tough I think it's so tough I don't know if it's living through our kids, or I don't know if it's just kind of where society is at the moment. I think there's a level of information that is around now, and I think there's so much out there that it's easy to kind of seem as if a parent is and his nutritionalist and his S&C and his I don't think any of those things are bad necessarily. I think they lean towards excessive, but what we're trying to do is an excessive thing. And I've said that it's the 0.00001% that is making it. So I guess you have to do 0.0001 stuff. I think where it gets tough is when it's not successful. I think that's like, it's a knife's edge. I don't think you should have a plan B. If I'm being brutally honest, I don't think you should have a plan B until you're resentful that you didn't have a plan B because you didn't get into to be a professional footballer. So I think it's one of those things. In terms of parents, I think parents are very supportive. The ones that I see, most of them are very supportive. I think football is a different beast because I don't think parents take their children to the dentist and the dentist says, you need a root canal, and the parent says, no, he doesn't. I know more about this than you. I do think that there's I'm the dentist in this scenario. So I do sometimes think it's hard because everyone has an opinion on football without where I would say is having, I think where parents do themselves a disservice is having a persecution complex. I always say there's only 2 reasons I could be giving the information that I'm giving. One is that I really hate your child and I don't want to see your child do well. Or 2 is because I think that it will make them better. I think that's the only friction point that I think and I think it does children a disservice. I think that's the only place where parents live through their child. I think they do their child a disservice by not thinking that their child can handle making them special.
Yeah.
I think we're making them too special would be my only thing. And as you know, when you cross this line into professional football, it's the most cutthroat thing I've ever been part of in my, the most cutthroat thing I've ever seen.
100%. No, thank you. And, because part of me, I ask that question also because sometimes I'm seeing parents who are more upset than the kid. And that might just be for a range of issues. That might be parents are more upset at the result than the kid is. Parents are more upset at the position that the kid is being playing than the kid is themselves. And so that's what prompted me to ask that question. But I want to lean into my second question, which kind of follows neatly, because I think it's quite loaded up. The question is, has King Richard damaged the game? And the reason why I asked that is because when I watched King Richard and saw the great job he did with, Serena Williams and Venus Williams and the success, is there something that maybe parents sitting in the rain, it's icy weather, but you got to put in those hours. It's ball at all cost if you want to make it. Has it gone a little bit OTT where we're almost taking the joy away from the journey?
The short answer would be yes. I think there is a bit of that, but I think you have to. I think it's each to their own, and I don't think it's necessarily. I think it's so tough because you have to be a professional from 8 and 9 years old. So I think this is the issue. And I say this, if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, or whatever, you can start at 19. You can not mess about in uni for 2 years, but you could fail the first 2 years of uni and decide I'm actually going to do something else. I think my professional football career started at 12, the way that I view it. So I do think that it's hard to get the balancing act. I think the King Richard thing also goes back to success stories. So I would want to know how many, there's Venus and Serena, but then what my question would be is how many children resent their parents going into their 20s and 30s because of that joy. One thing that I'm super happy that I'm not coming up in this generation playing football now is that I do think it's too serious too soon. I think Phil Foden looks like he's playing in a playground. I think Jude Bellingham looks like he's playing in a playground. I think Marcus Rashford still looks like he's playing football in a playground. I don't see you can still see that joy. I think Saka is the same. So I think if you look at the players that have gone on to be real high-end players, you can see that it's something that we don't talk about, joy, which I think is crazy. It's not we talk about output, goals, stats. It's all that stuff, and the winning is important. We play the game to win, but there is a joy element that you can't do this. I would go as far. I would override joy and say love. You have to love. I love this game. I say you have to love what you do, and can that be taken from you? I'm not sure. Someone could make me hate football. I think someone could contribute to me strongly disliking it. So that I don't think I can be pushed too hard. So I do think it's a knife's edge. I've had some real fun suckers, if you want to call it that, but it kind of turns my mind into, right, I've got to be a beast then when I'm with this coach. That's what this coach wants. But I still enjoy it. I do think there are some that, and what I would hazard to say is that those ones that are like that, I believe, are the ones that probably will go on to make it. That's, I guess, another side of the game that we often don't speak about, the level of hunger and drive and will it really takes. We talk about skill a lot, and I think it's overrated.
For real. And I'm sure OC and Colin will pick up on that. But I thank you. Look, I can listen to you all day, to be honest. My last question is this. Are our kids at risk of a mental health breakdown in the near future? And the reason why I say this, the amount of conversations I have with parents, the amount of times I see parents in the car park shouting at the kids on the sideline, shouting, get in there, get stuck in, do this, do that, hurt yourself. I always say to my son, I will never, as a dad, ask you to do something your dad won't do. So I'm not tall, and I'm not going to ask you to try and take down Andy Carroll. You know what I mean? But I'm seeing short boys and their parents, or short girls, are asking them to take down Goliath. For me, it don't make sense because you couldn't do that. You're not about that life.
Yeah.
But I feel like, are we at risk of a mental health breakdown? Because it feels like, especially in the Echo League, there's a lot of pressure. You talked about it's different now. It's pressure.
Yeah.
It's pressure to be in Argentina. It's pressure to be in Brazil. It's pressure to be at the top. You got people talking about you got a target on your back. Kids hear this. Yeah.
Yes.
So what impact could that have on our kids? And I'm looking at some of the kids and I'm thinking, right, like, if this doesn't work out for you, what's going to happen to you? We've got colleagues, we've got friends of this show who believe it's do or die. You're a baller or you're a baller. That's it. No option. No plan B.
Mm.
What is the risk of that mentality?
I think there's a weird balance going on at the moment, and this is not to attack schools. So I really don't want this to come off as an attack on schools. I do think that we're at a risk of the only place that some of these children lose is on the football pitch. So they are not ready for it. I think we've swung quite far in every other facet of life that we can't tell the truth and we can't say that was wrong, that was bad, that was not your best, you can do better than that. And the only time that players hear that is at halftime or at the end of a match or in the car to or from football. So I do think that there's a level of, not that we're raising children to be soft. I believe in safeguarding children. I believe in there being an appropriate amount of like risk to reward on what we say to children. However, I think we do kids a disservice at not telling them the truth. I think there's a way you can tell children the truth, but I think in everyday life, the system, if you want to call it that, I do think there's always another opportunity. So there's another opportunity to get it right and get it right and get it right. In sports, there isn't that. It's the finality. You lost. And I do think that children are less equipped to deal with losing. And on the flip side of that, to deal with winning. The objective of winning the Echo is to go and be the worst player in an academy team. That's how I frame it. If you're the best player in the Echo, Argentina, you're about to go and be the worst player at the academy that you go to. And I think we build children up to be big fish in small ponds is how I see a lot of this going on, where when you meet the real big dogs, I don't know how you're going to react to being in that environment. And in professional football, it's all big dogs. Like, I think I'm the best striker in the world at 18, and I'm sure Kenza would tell you that he thinks he's the best centre-back in the world at 18. Truly believe in that. So I do think, and I do think that social media is another thing that is the comparison. I only ever thought about growing up playing football. The only people I ever compared myself to were players that I had played against and I'd witnessed with my own eyes. So I wasn't watching a 7-year-old do skills that I can't do. So I think there's this constant catching up rat raciness of social media that I think is damaging. I also think that our highlight culture is damaging. I think I see more kids than ever playing the game for the Instagram reel that their parent is going to post later than playing the game to get better at the game, to be I think that, and also I think being a good teammate has flown out the window. I don't hear it spoken about at all. We call it doing the ugly work when we coach. I like players that want to do ugly work. I think everyone wants to do flip-flaps and step-overs and nutmeg people. I think there's a real... I think OC said the next Steven Gerrard. That's my favourite thing about Steven Gerrard. He'd be one of the players that I'd want to go to war with because of above everything, above him banging it in from 40 yards away and scoring volleys and being great at diags. The one thing that I love about Steven Gerrard is I can't think of any, and I'm an Arsenal fan, and I couldn't put many up there that I would rather go to war with than Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, he's a proper roll your sleeves up, come on, lads, follow me, let's do it type of player. And I'm with you there. Sorry, obviously, I know it's your turn. I'm going to let you jump in, but I just wanted to big up King Richard first and foremost. Big up King Richard. I think he did a fantastic job. A lot of pressure, but he had a dream and he had a vision. I just wanted to pick out something Deji said. Deji, you said you wouldn't ask your son to do something you couldn't do yourself. So why do you ask him to do flip-flops? Anyway,
I love that one. No way. No blows. No joking.
It's just all the subliminals. It had to come out.
Yeah. Do you know what? So I am a Liverpool fan, and Steven Gerrard is my favourite player of all time. But I just think from a young age, obviously the game isn't just about the flip flaps and the step overs. It is about that ugly side. It is about that grit. But I feel feeding into what Deji says. When you've got the 8-year-olds, the under 8, under 9, under 10 player, and they're not in there like perhaps the next player is, I feel like sometimes that can now impact the child's mentality and their self-image. Because if you're always saying, you need to be here, you need to do that, you need to be fighting, maybe they're not ready to do that. Do you understand? And maybe in a couple of years' time, they will. Or perhaps you look at the Prem, listen, it's an intense game, you need to fight, but not every single player is like that, and they still find a place in the game. So I just feel like that level of pressure feeding into the mental health piece that you spoke about, Deji. It's a big thing, because you're hearing parents shout out, you're seeing the deaths there, and you know like that card at home is going to be mad for the kid, isn't it? So yeah, I just feel like perspective is needed, because these kids, they're literally just in the game. My boy's under 9. So he's been playing. This is his 3rd season of playing real football. Yeah, so can't expect him to be Steven Gerrard when he's 8 years old. You understand? Yeah. So I feel like that pressure needs to be understood and removed at times to give them space to grow. So the question that I've got is, it may be obvious to us, it may be obvious to some, but what is your definition of the inner game, and what does it involve?
The inner game for me is that I think it's two things. One, I think it's preparation for performance. So I think it's everything that you do before you act would be one definition. And the second thing I would say is almost a self-reflection to understand who you are before you bring that out. I think a lot of the time I was operating under labels that had been given to me, or trying to copy other people without fully understanding and having acceptance of myself. So one, I think it's about awareness, being self-aware. And then two, I think it's about preparation and wanting to be the best you can be across all the spectrums, which I think will always start with mindset.
And I think, and you've been asking this question over the last few weeks. And where would you weight that in terms of the four corners? So you've got the psychological, the social, the technical, and the physical. Where would you weight that, and how would you weight those four categories across 100%?
Oh gosh, I genuinely would weight them all at a quarter. I think where you are on a journey, you're going to have to lean more heavily into one than the other. So I'd say before we say real football, for me, real football is 11-a-side football. And I think everything before 11-a-side football, you are going to be leaning heavier into technical, tactical than anything. So before 11-a-side football, I'd be looking at technical, tactical being 35, 40%, and the other three making up that 60%. I think then as you get older, then I think when you're hitting puberty and you're looking at where am I going to end up physically, I think that starts coming in, as well as the psychological and social. I think social is one that we also don't explore enough. And I don't mean that in terms of like the social media pressure, but I just think what it takes to be a professional footballer, I guess I could near enough put social at a 0. You're not going to have a social life. So it's almost a sacrifice. I think the social side is understanding the sacrifice of that social life. That's parties, Friday, just forget Friday nights forever while you're playing. Just forget them. I guess if you're a pro, I haven't had a Christmas or a New Year I didn't have a Christmas or a New Year until I was 25 that I spent not playing football or not training. And then I think that when you are 14, 15, 16, what I've kind of learned is that the social and the psychological will ultimately drive the technical, tactical, and the physical. I think we sometimes get it the other way round. That right, once I'm technically and tactically good and I can cover loads of ground, then I'll believe in myself, and then I'll be a good teammate, and then I'll. Whereas I think if you can get that side right going into your teens, that will always drive I want to get better. Why? Because I want to be a better teammate. Why? Because I want to help my teammates out. Why? Because I want to win. And it should really be working in a loop. That's what I really love about the four corners. But I would say an actual professional footballer is probably about 25% split across the board. Because I also do think people don't realize that if your children are not polite, if you don't know how to speak to kit men, if you don't know how to speak to the people that do your food when you're full-time in the academy, if you don't know how to speak to coaches without being disrespectful, you're not going to be long for this game. So I do think there's a side that when you're in a full-time environment, those daily encounters are something that I didn't realize how important they were, and I would come off quite abrasive in that psychological, social side. And I think I'm a good teammate, but I demand a hell of a lot as a teammate, and I only had one rule for everyone, which I wish now I would have leaned more into. He's a bit softer. I have to be super hard with him. Oh, this coach likes this coach likes that. I was kind of just doing my own thing. I wish I had more people management, even as a player.
I think that emotional intelligence piece is coming through from your PhD. So yeah, you can impart that to the next generation, which is good. Couple more questions, and okay. So this question is, I'll read it out. I wrote it. What are some things parents should do? What do you think some things that parents should do to support that in a game on match day, but also away from match day? So perhaps during a week or even over a longer time horizon. Sometimes we're very much in the detail on match day and day to day, but should we be like chunking out rather than just being hyper focused every single day?
So I think one thing you can do is goal set with your child. And I completely agree with you about it being not a super long-term goal, but nothing less than 3 months, I think, is too small. And I think you can take what we do with some of our mentoring sessions is we take one goal from each of the corners that we're going to work on over the 3 months and have those as a focus area. So if I take the 4 weeks of a month, week 1 might be me focusing on a weakness in my technical tactical side. And that doesn't mean that we're doing crossing and finishing and I decide I want to be better at defending, so I'm just going to flick the ball up and head it out. That's not, but having a real focus around this is something that I really want to get better at, doing the same thing for physical, psychological and social, and actually tracking that over those months and saying, what have you worked on this week? I also think post-game reports are very good. as long as they're not outcome based. So we have a list of things that players should always be able to be proud of. Did I try my best? Was I a good teammate? Was I brave? Did I try something new? Was I a good teammate? Did I shake everyone's hand at the end of the game and win with class or lose with class? I think it's us shifting. They're always going to want to win. I don't think you can dull someone's want to win, but I do think you can temper their brain to think there are things outside of winning that I can still focus on. So having process-based things, I think, is another good one. I think modeling what you want to see, I think one of the great things is like, one of the things that I think is that I have to stop myself from intervening in is when I hear stuff like, can't believe you missed that chance at the back post, that's the Xbox gone for the weekend. You're actually modeling as a parent that this is the most important thing ever to them. So I actually think modeling that consistency on the sideline, I think, is super important. I wouldn't speak about football in the car. So I don't speak to my son about football in the car, period. Either to or from football. I know that's not for everyone. And I do think there are some kids that want to get in the car and discuss things, which I think sometimes can be helpful, probably less helpful than parents ever think that it is. Because I think if you listen to a child speak, most of the stuff that they'll say will be outcome based, and it will be about the win or the loss, or it will be about the chance that they missed or the pass that they missed. And I think it's our job to refocus them on, it sounds corny, but did you try your best? What do you think you could have done better? What do you think you did well today? So I do think there's a level of just normalizing that conversation and not having it heated. It's hard when your son's been in the wars back and forth in the Echo A, getting kicked all over the place, and then the other team score a last-minute goal, and all the parents are going mad because it's the Champions League final, clearly, on another Sunday at 10 o'clock. It is hard because as parents, we then have to kind of go woosah and be there for the child. So I think it's a joint learning, and I struggle with it. As a coach. I do. Sometimes the behavior almost, it brings that out in you. But I think that's why we're adults. And also because somebody else acts a certain way, it doesn't mean I have to act a certain way.
I like that. I think there's a lot in there that I feel like as a parent, there needs to be that self-reflection. Is it all that costs? Am I getting too irate? Am I damaging my kids' mental health, essentially? Because I've been through a cycle and I'm still in the cycle now, but I would like to think I might take that advice. So I tend to ask my son about the game on the car at home, and it's relaxed, yeah. But if he doesn't ask this Sunday, I won't say anything unless he wants to speak about it. I'm just going to try that. But sorry, one thing that you said that I want to, just a quick question, because this isn't my final question, I'm just going to slide it in there. What do you think about incentive-based rewards from parents, and what impact does that have on the child's mentality about the pocket money, about the stickers, about the Xbox? What's your thoughts on that and the impact it's having on the game?
In that regard, I think I refer to football as almost like a religion. The way that I see it, not that it is I think, but the way that I view football is as something that's pure, and you do it because you love football. I think if you need any other incentive to perform, I think one, I think you're creating a monster. I mean that in the nicest possible way, because as soon as you introduce reward-based incentives, I think then you move the child from being internally motivated to, I want to do this for that inner game, for my self-confidence, because I want to be better, because I want to be the best, because I want to be a good teammate, because I enjoy winning, to something as trivial as a new pair of boots, which you're going to get them anyway, or ice cream that you're going to get them anyway, or and I think it also cheapens things like birthdays, Christmas, times when you do get them a treat, because you're putting that. I think you're telling your child that this is so important that scoring a goal is not enough, and I find that sacrilegious. Like, I don't think there is anything better than scoring a goal, or there is anything better than winning a hard-fought game. And I think if you're doing that, you're kind of creating a monster. What I also would say is the second they get into an academy setting, they're not going to get so much as a pat on the back for winning a game. So also what you're going to do is you're going to have their expectation up here for, well done, Johnny, that was so good today, to, you did your job today, I told you to move the ball quickly, you've done what I've expected you to do. And I think that I've seen children almost, if they don't get, you were so good today, that was so great, oh, why don't we, that they crumble, and it's like, what's the point of me doing this? I thought I was going to get football boots after this. So I do think I'm quite stern on that. I think you play football and I don't think there's anything wrong with, you just got signed for an academy, we're going to go and get some new boots for your next training session, well done. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do think if every time you score a goal, I'll put 20 quid away, and then however many goals you've scored at the end of the month, we'll go and spend the money. I do think that you're doing your child a disservice, because you're setting an expectation that will either not always be there, or will actually go in the other direction. And when they're not overly praised for doing something good, that they'll start thinking, what's the point of me doing this? I'm not getting anything from it.
I think the audience needed to hear that. They needed to hear that. Sorry, I'm hogging, and I'll pass the mic. My last one.
Phil just crushed me. Sorry, I'm just putting it out there. Phil crushed me there completely. There, I've been exposed. So.
What is it, Dej? What is it? What do you promise?
No, I mean my team. I have done it, and I just want to publicly apologise to my team. I have offered monetary for wins against certain teams. I'm not going to lie to you, shamelessly as it is. The whole team gets 3 quid, you know, that sort of thing.
It's not ball at all costs, or is it?
Sorry, that's class. Sorry, last one. You touched on it earlier. Do you think the game is a game for extroverts? You've got those childs that they're a bit more shy, they're a bit introverted. Do you think that the game is only one that extroverts will thrive in?
No, I don't think. I don't think so. I think the only way in which I do think it tends to select towards extroverts is that you deal with so much rejection. I don't know anyone that hasn't dealt with tons of rejection, and I think I think extrovert can mean a lot of things. I don't think it has to be like, hey, look at me. Sometimes I think being an extrovert can be when I say a simple player, I mean that in a positive way, but wanting to get on the ball when other players don't want to get on the ball. To me, that shows that you have a level of self-belief higher than other players. And I think top end scouts and real football people would select out for that. I do think now more than ever, with access to so many players, I think you see such a wide spectrum of different types of players. Paul Scholes comes to mind, that is super quiet off the pitch. I think he's a massive introvert off the pitch. I do think there's a performance level to it. I when you put the shirt on, I think you can transform into what you need to transform into. So I do think there's a performance art to football that isn't spoken about as much. I am a complete different person on a football pitch to the person that you're talking to now. I don't think I'd be invited on the podcast if anyone had come to one of my, because I envision myself as Phil Roberts 9, and I'm here to seek and destroy. Is the psyche that I would get myself into, that I want to dominate, is a psyche that I have that I don't have as soon as I take that shirt off. So I think you could be either an introvert or an extrovert. The only way that I think sometimes being an extrovert helps in football is when we talk about trials and those awkward times, you could sometimes almost blunder your way through them. So like, I didn't have a sense of how big being at Arsenal was. And I think that would have held me back a bit, because I just didn't. It's like, okay, I'm here, I'm meant to be here. So it was almost a bit of like blissful ignorance, that, or arrogance. It was on that fine line that I think if you're more introverted, I think second guessing can do a lot more damage than, I guess, being ignorant, in my experience.
Phil, you just lead me into question after question after question after question. I had some, and you just touched on two of them right there. So I'm going to go into them. I hope you're not pressed too much for time. I know you just got in, so if you need to go, let us know. Because we could be here a long while. There could be more healing again. But I was going to actually ask what type of player you were, because you touched on it and before, and I was sensing you're over 6 foot. I'm sensing you're a bit of a unit. I'm sensing the words beast mode came into some of the things you were asked to do. I'm sensing you were all action, all over people. You were in people's ears. You were just a pest to play against, and you had ability, but you didn't mind bullying your way through. I'm sensing all these things. How close am I?
Almost. I'm 5'10", 5'10" and a half.
Yeah.
I would describe myself as all those things. I would describe myself as before I got to Arsenal. Funnily enough, before I got to Arsenal, I think something I probably haven't touched on was if I could. I know we asked in the last pod if I could change anything, what would I change? And I think the only thing I think I could possibly change was probably not turning myself into more of an Arsenal footballer of getting it, moving it. I wish I could have kept some more of that that rawness about me. So I think I was a very technical player, but in terms of whilst playing, the thing I enjoy the most is that psychological warfare. Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to stop talking last. So as soon as it begins, it's on, and I really enjoy that. And I'll shake hands after the match as best I can, especially when I was a pro, definitely. But it was finding a balance to that. But I did play football to dominate. I did have a massive chip on my shoulder. And I think that's my highest respect that I can give to a defender, is to make you want to quit football after you come off the pitch playing against me. I want you to think maybe I shouldn't be a defender anymore because I've been absolutely ruined there, knowing that that's exactly what I want back from that centre back. I want to know that we both gave 1,000,000% and I came out on top. So that there's that competitive side to football that you're right. If we want to do the technical stuff, that's fine. We can do that. If you want to turn this into a street fight in a football sense, I'm quite happy to do that. So there is that. I love that competitive. I find it hard now that I don't play anymore, filling that void. I try and fill it with like marathons and high roxes and these kind of things, but nothing quite scratches the itch like being on a football pitch.
Phil, listen, I'm nodding, I'm smiling, I'm agreeing. I was that same type of centre forward. I'll talk smack all day. You want to talk smack? Let's talk smack. Yeah, do you want to stop me? I'll step over shift, flip flap, I'll do whatever. Yeah, you want a physical? Let's do it. And if it's done in the right way, at the end of the day, you shake hands and it's well done. I'll look forward to seeing you again. And you speak of that player highly when they're spoken about. So I fully get that. And I was going to ask you that question in another way. I was going to ask you, do you let your boys win in any sport you play? And I bet you don't. So I kind of got the type of individual you are. And that leads me to my next question, or the question I was actually going to ask, which is that all being said, I'm very similar in that regard, as I mentioned. Not everybody has it in them to go and take a master's in psychology. You have boys probably playing the game. How does a parent with that kind of mindset then knowing what the right thing to do is? Because when I hear you speak, it's not that I hear conflict. I hear the type of player you were versus the type of man you are.
Yeah.
Right? It's not conflict. I don't hear you contradicting yourself, but I hear both sides. So without a master's and without having that training, how does a parent who has that will to win channel that in parenting and coaching and leading their children?
I think in understanding that it's not about me and my outcome. I think that's probably been my biggest struggle as a parent of three boys that are just like me, too much like me, for me. But being able to almost understand, I love who I was and am, because I don't think if it was ball at all cost, this win at all cost, I don't think I'm like that now. I do think there's a distance to understanding the cost of winning, and also levying that up about being the type of human being that I want to be. So at times there is that conflict. There is that conflict there, and it comes out in my parenting and it comes out in my coaching. Sometimes I say sometimes, like, in my head, I'm saying, you's lot better not let me have to walk across here and shake this manager's hand and say good game. Like, and I'm thinking that, but I have to almost like put the players' needs ahead of my ego in that moment, and I've got it wrong before. So just like, like Deji would say about the monetary incentives, like, I've got it wrong. I've riled one of my teams up and said, like, whatever happens today, we are not losing to these lot. They've beat us twice already, and the manager's super smug, and I don't want to have to go over there and shake. So I'm big on being authentic, and also owning that the following Monday. So bringing all the players in on Monday and the parents and saying that was totally on me. I cranked it up too high. So I think in terms of that conflict of wanting to be dominant and loving that, I think you can do that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that in professional sport. I don't think it is necessarily always helpful as a parent or a coach or a colleague. And I think sometimes what we get wrong is this, or I definitely got wrong, was, but I'm real. But there has to be, I guess, a purpose to your realness. Is it helping me or is it harming me? And for too long, I let it harm me. This is me and this is who I am, and I'm not changing for nobody. But the only person that was paying the price for that was my football career. And I've had the opportunity to reflect on that, thankfully. And I hope that if I was to just blast over that and say to the kids, you got to dominate, you got to win. And when they tell you this, you just tell them, I'm Roberts 9, I do what I want. I would be doing my kids and the players that I coach an absolute disservice, knowing where that gets you. Otherwise, I always say this, I don't want to coach. and I don't want to go to uni and get a master's. I want to be playing in the Premier League today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, that's my story. This is the best that I've done with the choices that I've made, and I don't necessarily regret them. But what do I want? What do I wish I could do? I wish that I was playing for Arsenal in the Premier League. And I often think that being able to be vulnerable like that, and I do speak to the players about that, about how quick you can go from there to there, and actually who you are being foundationally important. I said in the last episode about not knowing who I was apart from Roberts 9.
I'm coming on to that.
Yeah, so I do think there's a conflict in me in the heat of battle, but in everyday life, in being a parent and being a father, and that's not me being perfect. I get it wrong with my middle son and my youngest son playing. I get it wrong with the middle one a hell of a lot. Where I have to go back and really look in the mirror and say, am I being like this out of my ego because you're my son, or am I doing this for your best interest and take myself out of it? So yeah.
Well, again, listen, we could go on for another 3 hours. You give me so much to unpack, but you know what? Yes, Deji's applauding, and you know why I think that's very important is because you have been your authentic self in that answer. You've acknowledged weaknesses and flaws there, being a parent, being a former player, the ego, being a coach, and admitting that sometimes you get it wrong. Like, we all get things wrong in life, right? Just because you're a coach doesn't make you perfect. Just because you have a master's doesn't make you perfect. But I think the key there is self-reflection and understanding and just reflecting on your actions, your words, your choices, and pulling yourself up if you think, well, maybe that wasn't the best choice of words, action, right? And I think people, if they're grown enough, accept where people have fallen down, because we are humans. We are flawed individuals, and that is the nature of it. But I think it's the acceptance and the reflection which helps us coexist and survive, right? You did touch on a couple of things. My missus tells me about my comedic timing. She says no one's interested, you shouldn't do it, but I ignore her. Anyway, you spoke about going into your club that you support, and I've got a mate of mine who's a coach, and he tells me about this Arsenal player. So I know exactly what you were saying. He said he changed. He wanted to do this, that, and the other. And I said to him, just stick the ball in the back of the net, right? Because all of this fancy stuff that they do, great, but stick the ball in the back of the net. And I think had he been your coach there, he would have tried to help you be your authentic self. And that's why they signed you. But listen, we're not revisiting that history right now. One thing I did want to say, shout out to OC for stealing my question, but it was perfectly placed, OC, so I don't have a problem with it. What I do, though, is the answer, Phil. I was thinking you were sitting on the fence, but then I thought, you know what? Balance by name, balance by nature. Plug to Balanced FC there, yeah? But I guess my last question for you is, Roberts on the back, R9. Actually, before we talk about R9, let's talk about R10, because you touched on performance and you touched on love of the game. And I just shout to Ronaldinho, because I think he encapsulated those two things probably the best in the modern era. Yeah, one of my favorite ever players. And when we talk about love of the game, the guy danced on the pitch before scoring a goal in a Champions League game at Stamford Bridge, right? He was always smiling. He was always having fun, but he performed at the highest level. He still loves the game today when you see him play. So I think that's your performance and your love of the game in a nutshell, Ronaldinho Gaucho. Yeah. But going back to the other R9, not Ronaldo Nazario, but Roberts 9. You touched on in the last episode I think you said something along the lines of you wish you didn't focus on being a footballer or knowing that you were more than a footballer. I think you said more than Roberts 9.
Yeah.
But with your psychology masters now, how does that relate to a child's manifestation of becoming a footballer? Is there conflict there, or should a child manifest becoming a footballer?
I don't think there's anything wrong with manifesting becoming a footballer. What I think there is something wrong in is having all your self-worth tied up in being a footballer. So I don't think that there are. I've got mates that I have known since I was 4 years old that I see frequently, and I have no idea what job they do, like none whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So to me, it becomes very clear that I don't define that person in any way, shape, or form by what they do, to the point that I don't even know what some of my friends do for work. Whereas I do think football is a very, I think it can if being a footballer is your number one personality trait, I think there's something wrong. And I do think that you're moving away from, I would say, manifestation closer to delusion. For me, that's how I feel that I was deluded to, I believed the lie that that's who I was. Somewhat like I fell for the trap of that's who I was. And I do think it's easier now with footballers becoming a brand and being able to, you see footballers that are releasing music and doing clothing deals and podcasts and stuff like that. However, I do think it selects out for, there's a fame element of it that I don't think there is with, one of my best friends growing up was like the number 2 squash player in the country from the age of like 11 to 20. And there's not that fame, I guess, element to it, and being completely encapsulated by that there is in football. So I just think the two go hand in hand, that you can really want to be a footballer, but still understand and have a strong sense of self that I actually think will help manifest that more wholly. So I don't think it would take away from my game. I just think I'd be a more wholesome person, to the point. If I came in and lost on a Saturday, I wish there was anything in me as a professional that I was able to put that away and not move on, but that was it, done. Like, forget the weekend, just forget it. I wish that I could have, I lived in Scotland for 4 years. I wish I could have gone on a walk through some valleys and nature and stuff, and I would just sit and watch the recordings back and almost kind of, because it almost meant too much. This is who I am. This is everything I am. Whereas when I look back at it, if I would have gotten away from it, gone and played darts, or gone and got some food, or gone for a coffee, or done something. I think paddle's a good way of that now. So when I see people go and do paddle, and I think when people often say, like, what's the obsession with it? I completely understand it's that escapism. It's just to get away and almost recharge for a minute and do something where you're not thinking about anything else. So I think there's more. I wish I was more open to doing things like going and playing some darts or snooker or getting away, but I would have just been hyper fixated on the reason that this is so important is actually because this is who I am, not this is something that I do.
Yeah. I hear you. And I think that's a great answer. And I think that's good for young footballers to understand. I know a lot of players now are going overseas and they're away from family, away from friends. And there's a lot of mobility in football now, and even just going up and down the country, young players going into digs or joining clubs up north. as we touched on, London is very different to other places in the country. And I think you do need to get out, go for walks and take up other things just to help you, because sitting in your apartment after a defeat, even after victory, may not be the healthiest thing to do. So, yeah, I'm fully with you there, Phil. So I guess I'm not going to keep you, or we're not going to keep you that much longer on this show. We're going to get you back on, I guess. I think you add so much value with regards to the mental side of the game. And how does one engage with the inner game? What does it take? What does the process look like? What does the cost look like? Let's just frame it. I have a son who's going into year 7, and let's just say they're an academy child. What would your service offer, and then what would that look like?
So at the moment, I haven't fleshed all the cost out. What I hope to do, the few services that I hope to offer would be a mentoring program, which I call Stronger Every Day, which would be a 6-week program where we look at stuff like building resilience, building confidence, focus, decision-making, topics that I think are good for all sports. The inner game isn't necessarily a football mentoring product. I think it's a sport mentoring product. It is framed through the lens of sport. So it's not a traditional almost mentoring. Everything is performance related. And I'm going to be setting that up hopefully to begin in March, to run 6 weeks on Zoom. And what I really want to happen is for there to be boxers and tennis players and footballers and Irish dancers to really engage, squash players, but just to see what we can learn from other sports as well, and what I can learn, but have a mentoring service set up from year 7 to 9, and then years 10 to 12, and have them in group sessions engaging and having guided mentoring. That would be one of the visions that I have and that I want to set up. And then secondarily, I really want to work with some academies, so that there are some players like me that are a headache, an absolute headache, an absolute... I feel sorry for some of my coaches that had me ages 15 through 18, but I really respect them now for being able to manage the ups and downs of a 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. But I really want to work alongside some academies and do some one-to-one or group mentoring. And one of the big things that is on my heart to do is to work with... I'm going to hopefully try and work with the PFA about players that are getting released from their scholarships and what the kind of like a next steps program, and unpacking that side of it, that maybe one journey has ended in some sense, but there are different routes that you can go down. So there's like stuff like non-league, exploring that, teaching could be something completely different. So those are a few ways you can engage with the inner game on TikTok and Instagram at the moment. At the moment, I'm putting out content to kind of raise awareness, but that will start to steadily shift towards actionable things and resources that, like we said about parents, I want to almost develop a role play for the car journey home, and I'll put that out on there. So I am looking to get that done in the new year.
Wow. You're going to be one busy man, first and foremost. I think everything you said there hit home is essential. I think literally just the guidance from players, scholars being released. And I always question, these scholars are performing at such a high level and they just disappear. And most of that is based on the psychological side of it, because they've obviously got the talent.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's important. I think mentorship is important in general. I guess the question I have on the group sessions for, you said years 7 to 9 and then 10 to, you say 11 or 12?
10 to 12, yeah.
Well, Are these sessions, are parents involved in these sessions, or is it just the individual?
So what I intend to do is every 6 weeks there'll be online Zoom sessions. I intend for the parents to be within earshot, but not to necessarily engage. But after 3 weeks, there will be a parenting only session, for them to know what we've been covering, and then one at the end as well, and how they can be. I've got support documents as well that will go out to all parents subscribed to the program for what we've covered, next steps, challenges, kind of like OC said, that I'm going to try and, if he doesn't bring any football up, I'm going to try and not bring it up in the car journey home. So actionable bits like that, because one of the big things that I'm big on is actionable challenges. I think sometimes the theory goes over your head, and I'm like this, if I don't have something I can act on, I might hear it and I might like it, but I'll never implement it.
Brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. And we need to try our hardest collectively to get you into academies as a whole, because I think you have so much to offer there. So I'll be making the phone calls I can make, and listen, I can't promise anything, but listen, I think you need to be in the academies with your knowledge, your perspective as well.
Needs to be at every club, Andrew. I think you need a Philip Roberts at every club, at every academy, because
you do.
You need someone that just brings that kind of bigger picture. You know, it's not life and death. Do you know what I mean? It's a game of football, and sometimes I feel we need that reminder.
Game within the game. Yeah. 100%. Indeed. 100%. You've got safeguarding officers at every club. You should have the Phil Roberts at every club, and we should call it the Phil Roberts at every club as well. Listen, Phil, you know how it goes on here. If you could get anyone to come on this pod, who would it be? And you know the drill by now. Whoever you name, you have to help us get them on.
I think John Bostock would be a really interesting one to get on. I think he's someone that I look up to have the faith that he's had through his entire career, and how that may have shaped him and given him both strength on the one side and challenges on the other side. I think would be a really interesting conversation, balancing his faith with professional sport. And my goodness, is he a very good footballer.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Sounds like somebody we've wanted to get on, but you've just committed to helping us get the stuff on next week. So kudos to you. Thank you.
He's behind Ballers in God, right?
Yeah, he's behind Ballers in God. I think he's playing in the Ballers League at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, is he? Okay. Well, we'll wait for that to finish because letting listeners behind the curtain here, we are recording on a Monday night. We are missing the Ballers League, so he can't be on both. But as soon as that's finished, you've committed to getting him on. So I have faith in you. No pressure.
No pressure.
I think you're used to pressure. Robert's on the back. So listen, guys, if you are still with us, again, you've been treated to a classic, a special, an episode of healing, an episode of insights, an episode of knowledge, and an episode of food for thought. So I want you to like, subscribe, hit the notifications, and get involved in the comments. If you've heard something you agree with, please comment. If you've heard something you disagree with, please comment. And often what people do is they say, oh, can you ask so-and-so a question? Yeah, we'll ask the question. So if you've got any questions that you want to ask Phil, you can actually get at him yourselves. The Inner Game, he's on Instagram, he's on TikTok. He's going to give us his handles in a second. Or you can ask us in the comments and we'll get those questions to Phil, because Phil's going to come back on. He's going to be a regular in between his academy, mentoring and FA work And in a game, he's going to pop in every now and again. I've just made that agreement with him. Yeah. So that's what's going to happen. So Phil, do you want to give us your handles, please?
It's the Inner Game with PJ on TikTok and Instagram.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Listen, guys, you know who we are. We know you're true to this. So please tell a friend to tell a friend and introduce somebody who is new to this. We are Ball at All Costs. He has been Phil Roberts, the Inner Game with PJ Roberts, and we are out.